Welcome to the New England Real Estate Journal and the New York Real Estate Journal podcast. I'm Rick Kaplan, the host, and my guest today is Michele Fitzpatrick. She is the Vice President of the 1031 Exchange Relationship and Management.
Yes.
I always screw the title up.
I know.
A little. She's with Northern Bank, and I welcome you, Michele.
Thank you, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. It's good talking with you.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you. We talk quite frequently, and you have a lot of insight on 1031. And you've been with Northern Bank for how long?
I've been with Northern for over 7 years now. So we are we just finished our 6th year of doing 1031 exchanges. So I've been heading that division since we started, and it's been, we had a great year this year. 2021 has been a booming year.
And you've been in banking for quite a while.
Yes, are you gonna tell me how old I am by telling me how long I've been in banking?
Well, I would say, you've been in banking for what, 20 years?
20 years.
And you only look like you're 30 years old.
Yeah, see, that's why I like talking to you. You're very, very kind. You're a liar, but you're kind.
So you started banking when you were 10?
Yes, yes, right out of elementary school.
You were a prodigy banker.
Yep. I wish. So I've been in banking for 20 years. I've had my real estate license that long. So when we were doing this 1031 exchange venture, it just was a natural progression. It made sense. I have my own investment properties. I've exchanged my own investment properties. So it was a natural fit for me.
So let's go right into what a 1031 exchange is.
Sure. So a 1031 exchange is an IRS code. It allows you to defer your capital gains taxes when selling an investment property and purchasing a replacement property as an investment or for business use. So there are some restrictions and there are some requirements when doing a 1031 exchange. The first one is that you need a qualified intermediary, which is a service that we provide. So we're qualified intermediaries, or QIs. You have to sell a replacement property. You have 45 days to you have to sell a relinquished property. You have 45 days to identify a replacement property, and you have 180 days to close on that replacement property. So there are some restrictions and there are some parameters that you have to follow, but when an exchange works, it really works well and people benefit from it greatly. Our investors benefit from it greatly.
So this is basically on an investment property. So you could not purchase you cannot sell an investment property and buy a residential property.
That's correct. That's exactly right. So 1031 exchange is for properties that are held for investment purposes or business purposes. And you can purchase a property held for investment purposes or business purposes. Primary residences, second homes, those do not qualify. Purchasing property into a real estate investment trust where you're purchasing a share in an LLC or a share in a trust, those do not qualify. You do have to buy a tenant in common, or you do have to buy a property where your name is on the deed, essentially.
So if someone has a $1 million property and buys a $900,000 property, will that qualify?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. That's one that we get a lot. So when you purchase, the goal of the 1031 exchange is to defer your capital gains taxes. In order to do that, to have 100% deferral, you want to buy equal or greater value, and you want to use all of your proceeds. You want to use all of your cash. So in the example that you gave us, you would be buying down in value by $100,000. So you would have a cash boot or a boot of $100,000, which would be taxable. Now, in saying that, you can either pay the taxes on that $100,000, or you can try to go out and find another property for that. So you can buy multiple properties. You don't have to sell one and buy one.
So people understand this clearly. This is only a tax deferred program. This is not a tax disappearing program.
That's exactly right.
So,
That's exactly right.
So it's deferred for how long?
So it's deferred until you die or until you sell. And people have different strategies on how they're going to utilize 1031 exchange, how they're going to preserve their profits and build their wealth. And that really depends on our clients. We have some people that are going to say, I'm going to defer until I die. And then their children get the property with the stepped up in basis, which is a tax benefit to their heirs. Or they're going to say, I'm going to defer until I retire, and then I want the cash, and I want to go out and buy a motorhome and go cross country and take that cash and never have to worry about a tenant again. And then they'll pay the taxes at that point. So it really just depends. So you can either defer till you die, or you can defer until you cash out.
Yeah, so just another fact to be clear on is that if you do die and you leave it in your inheritance or your estate, the tax that you deferred is not all that tax is not left over for your heirs to pay for.
Yeah, that's right. So that's actually something that we've been watching pretty closely in the legislation that's been kind of bouncing around in proposals that have been that have come out, and that's the stepped up in basis. So right now, the way it stands, that if you do a 1031 exchange, you're deferring your capital gains taxes, you die with a property that's worth $1 million, and you only have a $100,000 basis in that property. Your heirs get the stepped up in basis. They get that property that's valued at $1 million. So if they turned around and sold it, there would be no capital gain implication there. But, there is talk of perhaps changing the stepped up in basis. I even heard proposals of having almost like a death tax, where you'd be taxed immediately upon the death of, the difference between the basis, the original basis. So that's something that we're watching really, really closely. And that's something that I think a lot of people are watching that own properties, because it's an important factor when determining what your estate plan is and what your what your long-term plan is for your properties.
Yeah, because that would be like a death tax, because when you get that tax bill, you would want to die.
And you have to sell the property literally immediately and cash out. So it would really be such a hindrance on people. It would be such a hindrance. The whole thought of it is actually kind of scary. So we're hoping that we're watching that closely as well.
So now we go, this is bringing us into 2022 about the 1031s. There's a lot of talk in the Biden administration making those changes.
Yes.
First of all, it would be kind of a stupid move for them to do so, because I think it would affect too many people.
Yes.
And not just the wealthy, it trickles down to everyone.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, honestly, like, of our exchanges, I would say 50% of our exchanges are one-time exchangers. They're people that own triple deckers in Somerville. They've owned it for 50 years. They've rented them out. They have very little basis in them. All of their money, all of their equity, everything that they have is tied up in this one property. They're not wealthy. They just happen to own a property that appreciated to $2 million in value. I mean, these aren't the uber wealthy people. These are one-time exchangers with one asset that made a very good investment 40 years ago. So it really does affect so many people. But fortunately, 1031 exchange has been in the IRS code since 1921. So we celebrated 100 years of 1031 exchanges and being part of the code. And, it's under scrutiny a lot. So it's not that 2021 or 2022 was any different with this tax legislation. There was some changes that were made in 2017 with 1031 exchange. So we are used to it coming up and having to fight and continue to educate our lawmakers on the importance of it and how it drives both the real estate market and the economy in general. So our association, the Federation of Exchange Accommodators, it's a national association that includes all of the qualified intermediaries across the country. Our association's been working with other large national associations, including the Farmers Associations, the National Realtors Association, which they have such power and such strength because of their numbers and because of their broad outreach. So we've partnered with them to lobby our lawmakers and really instill and educate on the importance of 1031 exchange.
Well, I'm sure they know what they're doing, and I'm sure if these lawmakers they sit down and they think about it.
Yeah, ears are open.
Yeah, I mean, they've done some dumb things in the past, but hopefully, all of the people, all the lobbyists can knock some sense in them and show the benefit for keeping this 1031 the way it is in place.
And we say it all the time. I mean, just think about what happens with one transaction, just one real estate transaction, and how many people it employs and how much money moves through that transaction. So, if you're selling a house, you're hiring an attorney, a banker to do your mortgage, an appraiser, an inspector, a title company, the paralegals, the realtors, all of these people, qualified intermediaries, all of these people are part of that transaction. And when you're doing a 1031 exchange, there's always at least two transactions. You're always selling a property and you're always buying a property. So that's just driving the real estate market. It's driving the economy. It's pushing money into the economy. And the reality is, and I know for a fact, when I didn't exchange personally in 2021. If I had to pay the taxes, I wouldn't have closed. I wouldn't have sold. And my house, I had owned a house for 20 years and I didn't really do a whole lot of work to it. As soon as I sold, the new buyer went in. He put in, a new front yard. He took down trees. He put up a new siding. He did all of this work that wouldn't have been done. So again, all just stimulating both the economy and the real estate market because of a 1031 exchange.
Right. It's a great economy booster. And, for them to want to eliminate that would be a poor move on their.
Absolutely. So, 100%. Agreed.
Yeah. So, we've talked about this and you suggested that I run for president. And
I did. And this will be the second time I'm going to tell you, I think you should. I think you're the lawmaker to be there.
I thought about it. I thought about it for like a half a second. And I said, nah, I'm not going to do that. And I don't think anyone would want me to be that.
I told you I'd sign your name on a ticket.
But, we also, everyone in the industry has to appreciate what you do because you write a lot of articles and send in a lot of content to the New England Real Estate Journal just on this topic, 1031 exchanges. And, it's very important that continues going out because, people need to know what's going on in that field because, if people are owning investment properties, this is a big part of it, the 1031 exchange.
It is.
If they want to continue on.
Yeah. And, we really like partnering with the Real Estate Journal. You guys have been so great to us and you do the spotlights, you do your 1031 exchange spotlights twice a year. So, my colleagues across the country and across Massachusetts all chip in and, I read stuff from them as well. And I'm like, wow, they have such a great insight. So, there's always something to learn. So I really do appreciate the voice that you've given us, both in this podcast that we're doing in the print in the articles that we write. It really is important, and you guys play such a huge role in it. So thank you.
And we appreciate you and the Northern Bank. And I want
Thanks,
to
Rick.
thank you, Michele. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
You as well. Thank you.
We're talking with Michele Fitzpatrick, and I'm going to try to do your title the right way.
Go for it.
Okay. She's the vice president handling 1031 exchange relationship manager.
That's right. That's good.
Is that better?
You got it.
I don't know.
You got it.
I want to thank you, Michele.
Thank you, Rick.
I want to wish everyone to have a great day. Until next time.